The CAT plan was put together by a lot of people, but at our city level and leadership. And we are reading the CAT plan intensely. The board just got it when it came out. We did have parties that were involved in the CAT plan, and we had stakeholders that helped work on it. Our partners, UTSA, as well as Navigant, which is a global energy consulting firm, helped put it all together. But the filter of it is very, very much what Doug is saying. The city looked at, and the committee looked at, all of these broad considerations relative to the environment. And so Doug is the best expert. What I want to talk to you about a bit is CPS Energy, our piece and our relationship to that, and what the flex path is and what the flex path is not. One of the biggest questions I get is the CAT plan, the flex path. It is not. They're more like cousins. They're related because, as Doug said, energy and how we produce energy and the plants that we use and the large-scale production actually drives all the power that goes to your homes and businesses. And so there's a direct connection with the solution set, but not exactly the same. What I want to do, though, is give you a little bit more context about CPS's position, where we're coming from, the things that we have to consider in terms of solving energy issues and finding opportunities. And then when we hear from you, there'll be this topic about CAP in itself, and we'll be interested in what you think generally about energy. Related, we want to know what your nuanced thoughts are. So I'm going to talk a little bit again about positionally, where we have been, what we've been doing, how do we get to this point, talk about how we've accommodated growth and what we think about it, and move through these components all the way through community engagement, and then different things that we look at as we're trying to solve energy issues. The biggest thing I want to highlight again, we have been your energy provider, whether we were municipally owned or not, for 158 years. And we've been owned by the community. You are, in fact, our shareholders, our stockholders. So for 76 years, we've been managing your assets. And I just can't say it enough. I mean, a lot of times people will say, I don't know what CPS Energy is going to do. They're thinking about their profits. They're thinking about what their bottom line is. In reality, we're thinking about managing the assets that you own. You own a full portfolio of generation assets. You own transmission systems. You own distribution systems. You own the meters. We manage them. And so we run this organization like a business. Yes, we are owned by the community. I answer to all the council members gladly. I answer all their questions. They ultimately have significant authority in terms of our debt and our rates, confirming our board members, eminent domain. Those are absolutely clear. The day-to-day issues around all of our activities, be they producing power or meeting regulation, whether they be at the federal, state, or local level, whether or not energy technology is advancing and how it's advancing, our board helps give us oversight about how we solve problems. And so again, connection, not quite the same. We do the exact thing that Duke Energy would do. We do the exact thing that Exelon will do. We do it all in terms of providing power to you. And we've been doing it. And the good thing that we have is that we have an obligation, a commitment, and a desire to serve you. What we know is we're bringing in more San Antonians. Everybody has talked about the growth in the community that's coming, moving from 1.5 million to 2.5 million and maybe more. So we have to think about the assets we currently have. We have to think about those assets are aging out over time, will have to be replaced. And then ultimately, what do we do to solve the issue of general, expansive, large growth that's coming forward? And we can see the trend happening. It's coming. We've already seen a tremendous amount of growth in San Antonio. And even if we go into kind of a low period, the overall projections are that San Antonio is going to grow, continue to grow. So what about it? So we've accommodated growth always have, always will. We think about how do we make sure that we're maintaining our assets, that we're making sure that they're operational, doing the right amount of effort, because when you really notice it is in the summer, when there's a huge demand to keep your homes and your businesses and schools as comfortable as possible. So we've been running the business really still trying to make sure that we are blocking and tackling your energy solutions effectively every day. In doing that, we've been making sure that we do better on our customer service ratios. We are, for again, I think for the third time, we are top in our region for our attention to customer service. We are not in a competitive market in terms of electricity. In gas we are, electricity we are not. However, inside our company we say things like, we want our customers to feel like they have choice, to feel like they have all the value they would if they were in a competitive market without the headaches. Without the headaches. So we pay attention to pricing in other markets. We pay attention to solution sets. We look at all types of technology around the globe because we want to think global and apply local, because we believe that our community, you all deserve that as our customers. So we do that. We're at the top 2.5% of all utilities. Again, Exxon, Duke, Florida, all of these different companies, Xterra, all of these companies, we're in the top 2.5% of everyone. And that's really because you have required us to be good stewards of your assets. And this presentation will be available for you. We'll make it public, and as we are making all of our presentations available on the subject to you. So how do we do it? We haven't had a rate increase in 5 years, and I know I talk about it all the time. But I want to get it out of the way. Everything costs money. Everything costs money. Conservation costs money. Renewables cost money. Gas costs money. Every situation requires, particularly energy, requires some level of investment all the way through. And so we have to think about spending and how we spend and how we control costs. So how do we not come to you in 5 years, and we're not declaring one today, to make it all work? We constantly look for ways to keep bills affordable. We constantly look for ways to slow down the cost escalation. Matter of fact, we had a presentation to the board today. We went back and asked another vendor for best and final again to try to make sure that we can drive those prices down as much as we can, increase our efficiency, use technology smartly, and we've been able to do it. It's been hard, but we do it for you because a reporter asked me not long ago, why do you do it? Because our customers have to do it. Our customers have budgets. Our customers have costs that they have to control and maintain. We obviously have to do the same thing too. We buckle down like everyone else. So here we are. The city has objectives that is put out with the CAP, and they're looking at the big policy issues relative to what the research says, the global trends. A tremendous amount of effort has gone into that. We have been looking at those things, but more so maybe the specific developments around what we have to do every day, which is produce power. Again, we have to see what technology can work. And we have a perspective that, and it's not a perspective, it's a fact. Yes, we have beliefs about being able to solve all the energy problems. We also have an obligation to serve. An obligation, which means every time you hit that light switch, you expect it to go on. Now, when we have storms and we have to restore, the amount of tolerance that people have for how long they want to be out is very short. It's gotten extremely short. And our council members get phone calls if they get too many outages. And so we look at the ways to provide power as reliably as we can. Now, the point is, today we know what we know, and every year we see people across the globe make decisions and investments in research, and we see the industry changing. We're going to need these decades to try to solve a lot of things because technology is not all in to make this an easy play. It's not super transactional. These are still big price tickets. PPAs cost a lot of money. Investments in new plants, whether they be gas or anything, cost a lot of money. And so what we do is we put everything through a prism of looking at affordability, thinking about the implications to the environment, thinking about how we can put new offerings on the table in a way that is manageable for the community. And again, when we say electrons and molecules love everyone, we want to hear from everyone about those things. Somebody asked me, we put the flexible path, I'm going to go to that. I'm going to go to that in a minute. But they asked me about the flexible path. And, you know, you've been talking about it a long time. What are you going to do with that? And why don't you have an answer today about what the flexible path is going to do tomorrow? Most of our decisions take a very long time to implement because most of our assets last decades, 30 years, 40 years. It's not uncommon in our industry. So it takes us a very long time to plan, a very long time to get permitting and develop, a very long time to operate that plant, and then as we all know, when you get out of technology, you got to take care of dismantling it. And so all of our assets take a lot of time, and we are constantly thinking about them. This slide right here is just a sample of all the different portfolios we have. Now I will tell you, we are poised for new technology to come out. It could be any type of disruptor on energy storage. I think the whole globe is waiting for energy storage to take off and be more affordable, but there isn't standardization yet. What we did learn, again, back in the 70s, if we try to double down completely on one type of technology, we get whipsawed by that technology. And so we've learned over the years to be diversified, to have a robust portfolio, and to really get the best of all of our offerings that we can. And that's why we see a big assortment of different types of technology to power the community. I'm going to hit this one a little bit again because we got a question. In the CAP plan, again, it looks at it from the way the energy comes in and from usage points. When it goes to your buildings, the main pie does that. When it goes to your buildings, homes, different structures like that, like this one, it's measuring there. But we still measured what our emissions are off of our plants. And what happens is we know that everything that we do ultimately goes to the end customer. We do not shirk our responsibility about our portfolio and what it does. We understand the connection, and we know that we're part of the solution set. That's basically what that's saying. And so, as Doug said, there's many things that we can do, and this is just a sample. Again, we've closed DOE. We put in more solar. We put in more wind. We are doing energy storage. Nuclear is non-emitting. Whether you like it or not, it is non-emitting and doesn't have emissions. And so we have really reduced our emissions quite a bit. And so that's helped. And there is more that the FlexPath could possibly do. There's more that we can do in terms of other programs. That can happen on the big mass scale. And we still also support demand response. We support any type of weatherization and other programs. We support a lot of different things that we can integrate into our plan and make work. But as Doug said, it's a community solution. I think a lot of people want to look at the energy company and say, golly, look at all that production there. But as he said, it affects transportation. And if this building right here, it is a community asset, but it's not super efficient. It's not, it just isn't, and we know that, right? And so we have that all across our community. So there's things that we can do as individuals, there's things that we can do as organizations to really figure out what happens. And so there's a sample of that in terms of how we look at the pie. Now, I'm going to say this. I think this is where it's going to get challenging. And I'm speaking as the CEO of this company. We are open to do what the community wants us to do. And that's why it's really important that you all come out and we hear the full gamut, and that our board in particular gets to hear what you think. Now, we've got to make 1.5 million people happy. That's going to be tough, but we're here to do that. The thing that we know, even when you look at our emissions, it's a squiggly line, goes up and down and up and down. What we're proud of is the line of regression. If you planted a straight line through all our change, it goes directionally in the right place. But it's not a straight line. And so we say that with our flexible path, We believe we can do the right things for the community, but we won't always make the decision that you want us to every single time. But every decision we make will contribute to us getting to the right solution in the end. So this is the slide that I think started it all. It made some people super angry. It made some people like, and some people confused. The biggest thing I want to tell you about this is not a plan. We don't know exactly what technology is going to do. We're hopeful, we're looking, we're researching, we're driving, we're incenting, we're making sure that people do a lot more in innovation. This is a path that we think can happen if we think about technology progressing over time. It is a path. Every year, Chris and his team and the whole organization puts together another update based upon what we learn. And every year, we'll update what we think will happen in the future. But we can't really project today what 2030 or 2050 will really look like, not in terms of the decisions we make, but in terms of the technology that's available to us and what it costs. That's what we can't predict. So, all that said, we still believe that we're going to all figure it out. This is our image of a smart city, a flexible path to a smart city. What I want to leave you with is that's a goal. This discussion is extremely hard and tough. I've heard from many people. Again, some people, too slow, Paula. CPS is too slow. It's a horrible view. You're not doing enough. And other people say that right now you don't have the solution set to do an all-in. And they worry about the portability, not just for them, but for other people who really don't have the money to pay for both our rate increases and a big capital plan or a big PPA plan on top. But here's what I say, 2030 and 2050, that's time, and I think time is our opportunity to work together. My biggest thing, I tell all my people internally, we have to have civil discussions internally to talk about issues. And we at CPS Energy want to hear from you, and we want to hear the full gamut. And we still believe, again, it might not be a straight line, but we're here with the community to do what you all ask us to do, overseen by a board that is very interested in practical solutions, affordable solutions, good environmental solutions. But we're going to have to look at it together. So with that, I turn it back over to my board. I thank you all for coming out tonight. We very much are interested in what you think. Tonight's not the last night. The city's doing what they're doing going forward, and we will continue to ask you as our customers what you think, so we'll do the right thing for you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Now I'll explain the guidelines we'll use for this evening's public input meeting. Each person interested in speaking must have completed a speaker's registration card at the registration table by 6 p.m. We have 37 attendees signed up to speak, and the maximum limit per speaker will be 2 minutes. A registered speaker may cede their time to another speaker, but no speaker may speak for more than 2 other registered speakers. Only 1 appearance per speaker will be permitted. A timer will be displayed on the screen to alert speakers to their time remaining. After the allotted time is expired, the speaker will have 5 seconds to wrap up. I will call a speaker's name 3 times. If there is no response, that person will forfeit their opportunity to speak, and the next speaker will be called. After I call the current speaker's name, I will also call the names of the next 2 registered speakers, and they may move up to the reserved seats in front by the microphone. Those reserved seats are right there. All speakers are asked to introduce themselves to the board when they step up to the microphone. If a registered speaker is using time from other registered speakers, please also provide their name in addition to your name. There will be no signs or props other than the CPS Energy displays that any speaker may use to illustrate a point. Carrying personal signs or props could block the view of the audience. Please be courteous so that we can hear each speaker without interruption. Speaker's time is limited, and any applause or talking from the audience will interfere with their time. If you have comments but prefer not to speak, you may put your thoughts in writing by completing a written comment card available at the registration table. No person attending this event may delay, interrupt, or disrupt the meeting or refuse to follow a request from the board chair. Attendees shall remain seated, except for the person speaking at the microphone and registered speakers moving to the front row near the microphone. Please note that this meeting is scheduled to end at 8:30. If for any reason you do not get the opportunity to convey all your input, we will accept written comments through this evening. You may put your thoughts in writing on the comment card and place them in the comments box located at the registration table. Also, you're welcome to submit comments anytime through our website at cpsenergy.com/public input. We are now ready to begin hearing from our registered speakers. The first speaker is Kyva White. If she will come forward, followed by Christina Mann, and then Ray Chavez. So our first speaker, where's this one? Ms. White, I'll go ahead and say it for you, but you've had time seated from Justin Lucia, and so your total speaking time will be 3 minutes.
Good evening. Is this turn on?
No clock yet.
Alright, cool. Good evening. My name is Kyva White, and I work for Public Citizens Texas Office. I also serve on the Energy and Buildings Working Group for the San Antonio Climate Plan. It has been a pleasure to participate in that process, and I look forward to continuing this work, particularly as it relates to CPS Energy. Decarbonizing the CPS Energy electricity supply must happen much earlier than 2050, and doing so offers an opportunity to benefit customers. Public Citizen believes that shutting down the Spruce coal plant by 2025 and phasing out the use of natural gas electric generators by 2030 is feasible and can be done affordably. These goals should be added to the plan. Other Texas utilities and utilities in other parts of the country are making massive investments in wind, solar, energy efficiency, energy storage, and demand response, and phasing out their use of fossil fuels while reducing costs for customers. Austin Energy has entered into a series of recent wind and solar contracts that will bring the utility's renewable energy portfolio to 50% by 2020. The utility has committed to retire its remaining coal-burning power plant in 2022 and will have 943 megawatts of utility-scale solar by 2020. Austin Energy's latest rate change in 2016 was a rate decrease, and customer bills are among the lowest in Texas thanks to robust energy efficiency programs. This is possible in part because solar and wind are now the cheapest energy sources in Texas. For example, one of Austin Energy's solar contracts was reported to be about $21 per megawatt hour, a price that can easily compete with coal and natural gas generators. Xcel Energy in Colorado offers another excellent example. The utility issued an all-source RFP and received hundreds of clean energy proposals at unprecedented low prices. This included wind at $11 to $18 a megawatt hour, solar at $23 to $27 per megawatt hour, solar combined with energy storage at $30 to $32 per megawatt hour. The utility will shut down 2 coal-fired units and replace them with a mix of solar, wind, and energy storage projects and the purchase of existing natural gas capacity. It is important to note that new natural gas generators are generally too expensive to compete with new or existing wind or solar or even energy storage. In both Austin and Colorado, public involvement has been key to identifying the most affordable energy choices. Austin Energy engages in regular resource planning process that is guided by a citizen task force. Xcel Energy must get the approval of the Colorado Public Utilities Commission for major investments and rate changes. In both cases, a significant amount of information is shared with the public and assumptions are questioned and adjusted where appropriate. The energy market is changing rapidly, and old facts are often no longer true. More public involvement will yield better results for the environment and customer bills. A public process with a task force empowered to make recommendations should be initiated immediately to take on that important work at CPS Energy. In the meantime, we call on the City Council to strengthen and adopt the climate plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. So our speaker number 2 is Christina May. And then I want to call for Melvin Eagles.
Good evening. My name is Christina Mann, and I work for the Sierra Club. Thank you for holding this public input session today on the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. Adopting a climate action plan is important for San Antonio, and we are supporting adoption of this plan with some important details filled in. In my role working with Sierra Club here in San Antonio on coal and clean energy issues, I've had the good fortune to develop working relationships with many of the folks in this room from CPS Energy. One issue I've shared with your staff in the past is especially pertinent to CPS Energy's role moving forward to implement a climate plan for San Antonio. The need to have an actual plan to retire the risky coal units by 2025, and yes, the gas units soon after, and replace that generation with clean energy, storage, and energy efficiency, with the cost and rate impacts evaluated. This should be done in a transparent process and incorporates robust public engagement. Luckily, we can move forward and achieve incredible results together. Forbes recently reported that building new wind and solar energy is already cheaper than running existing coal in many cases. I'd like to share some details about utilities across the state and country that are making huge reductions in carbon pollution, or will be, and are saving their customers money, or will be when they implement these plans. Last year in Denton, the Denton City Council set a goal for Denton Municipal Electric to provide 100% renewable energy to the community by 2020. In setting these goals, the Denton City Council adopted the Denton Renewables Resource Plan, and an actionable plan to reach that goal. Rapid implementation is underway, and Denton is acquiring solar contracts that are in line or below average wholesale electricity rates. And more Texas utilities continue to innovate. In December 2018, New Braunfels Utilities signed a 15-year contract for 255 megawatts of West Texas solar for less than $25 per megawatt hour. This is one of the lowest prices seen for solar in the country. And under this agreement, Denton gets 75 megawatts of that power, and New Braunfels, Garland, and Kerrville sharing the project at different proportions. Going a little north to Indiana, the Northern Indiana Public Service Company, or NIPSCO, a formerly coal-dependent regulated utility in northwest Indiana, much less the kind Ms. Williams described earlier, with hundreds of thousands of customers, again, much less like CPS, announced that it is tentatively planning to retire all of its coal plants by 2028 and replace 1,650 megawatts of its coal-burning power plants with solar, wind, energy storage, energy efficiency, and demand response. This move is expected to save their customers $4.3 billion compared to running those plants through 2035. And earlier is better. The utilities analysis showed that retiring its entire coal-burning fleet by 2023 could save customers an additional $1.3 billion. San Antonio deserves a chance to see these kinds of proposals and analyses. We will continue to work with CPS Energy throughout this climate action planning process and beyond to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mann. And I failed to mention that, no, you're fine, but that you had 3 minutes, and that's because Justin Lucia see that you wanted 1 minute at this time. So the next speaker will be Ray Chavez, and then I would call Richard Pettis.
Thank you. I'm Ray Chavez, President and CEO of the San Antonio Manufacturers Association. I appreciate you all allowing us to talk about the plan tonight. SAM and its members have long been concerned with environmental issues and leads by example in ensuring our manufacturing members are knowledgeable about our environment and to be compliant with national, state, and local rules and regulations. Our goal is to ensure all are good stewards of our environment. We also plot forward-looking initiatives to improve our environment for future generations and project population growth. However, the proposed RAP plan is short on details. Generally, why do we need this plan? We understand concerns with climate change, but the plan should focus on the climatic issues we will face in the future with published and unbiased climate science experts, by climate science experts, specific and detailed facts, studies, and analysis. This will provide scientifically reliable reasoning and help all understand why we need this plan. Current plan conveys we have to do it, period. Specifically, the plan does not address any cost to implement, nor does it address where the funds will come from to pay for it. Same is concerned, residents, our industry, and small to medium-sized businesses will be the ones that will ultimately have to pay for this plan if implemented. Statistical cost analysis is needed on the type of infrastructure change that will be required for buildings, roads, etc. mentioned in the plan. We need to know if we can afford it. Sam would also recommend including the cost analysis by line item so it can assist in gauging total costs. Regarding renewable power conversion, detailed calculations of the effect on power cost is required. How much is going to cost residents and businesses? The bill impact is needed by all. The plan also disregards the oil and gas industry to the point of saying we don't need you anymore without consideration of the economic impact it brings to our community. What would happen if we lost 3,000, 5,000 jobs in our community if these companies left? Lastly, we recommend more time to develop a more comprehensive and unbiased plan that is acceptable to all. We should not rush a plan of this nature just to have a plan or satisfy personal agendas. There is a lot at stake for San Antonio. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. John. So I'm going to call forward Melvin Ingalls and then bring forward Al Johnson to sit up here.
Good evening. My name is Melvin Ingalls. I'm a retired mechanical engineer. I'm speaking for myself. 2 minutes is hard time to make a point, but I'll try. CPS plans to have 50% solar and wind by 2040. But wind and solar are intermittent power sources and require affordable storage. But affordable utility storage at utility size is, except for pump storage, does not now exist and may not exist in the future. It's not good business to form a plan for the future depending on something that doesn't exist. If CPS is really, really serious about eliminating CO2 emissions, then nuclear power is the only current plan for reliable, affordable electricity. So I would like to ask CPS to give serious consideration to increasing the use of nuclear power. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ingalls. I'll call forward Richard Pettis, and then I think it's David Fry. Would please come up. Ms. Pettis.
Good evening. My name is Richard Pettis, and I'm the President and CEO of the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. I'm here today representing over 2,100 businesses, both large and small, that together employ 500,000 people in San Antonio and the region. Thank you for this opportunity to provide the business community's input on San Antonio's Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. There are some mitigation strategies within the plan we believe are logical, such as engaging with the local business community to determine how to best undertake a vulnerability assessment to consider wide-ranging impacts of a changing climate to business continuity, economic growth, and unintended consequences. However, we are gravely concerned when there seems to be a sentiment that economic development is contrary to good stewardship of the environment. Our community has done much to improve air quality over the past 30 years, and we will continue to do so. However, the business community has legitimate concerns with the plan as it stands today. 50% of the mitigation strategies will be initiated by 2021. This is not a long-term plan. This will require real dollars right away. Our largest concern is that the report does not address how we, as a community, are going to pay for the plan. CPS Energy prides itself on having a diverse portfolio which leads to affordable energy prices. Low-cost energy is a key component to sustainable economic development. The stated goal of the plan is to be carbon neutral by 2050. The San Antonio business community needs to completely understand what that means specifically to businesses. If we are not careful, we may well be driving away jobs. Let's remember that we have some very important companies here in San Antonio that are involved in the production, refinement, sale, and transportation of crude, refined, and component parts of oil and natural gas. These companies employ many, many people and make significant contributions to our community outside of their biweekly payrolls. To meaningfully engage in this document, we must understand the costs and economic impact. We urge the slowing of this process down and to make this a fast, fact-based plan that includes implementation costs for businesses and homeowners alike. We welcome the chance to work with you on this plan to ensure San Antonio's economic competitiveness is not diminished, but rather enhanced for our community's long-term growth.
Thank you, Mr. Pettis. I'll call on the microphone Al Johnson and ask Greg Harmon to please come up.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Al Johnson. I'm just a citizen. I spent a little bit of time in the military. I'm an optometrist by training, so I have a little bit of scientific background, but I've got a tremendous interest in the science behind this, I'll choose my word carefully, controversy that we have regarding climate change. I would just ask us to think a couple of things through. We hear a lot about this concept of 97% of the scientists and consensus. I would ask us to think back a little bit about a guy by the name of Galileo. The consensus was that he was wrong. Only takes one to be right. You may remember a guy by the name of Richard Feynman, who was a very well-noted physicist. A quote that I use for him, it says this: "It doesn't matter how beautiful your theory is. It doesn't matter how smart you are. If it doesn't agree with the experiment, it's wrong." What we don't have in this arena is some experimentation. We have a lot of fluff on one side, if you will. I use that word ill-advised, probably. So you already know already by my words that I'm a, quote, skeptic, denier of climate change. I don't deny it simply because I'm a denier. I've read quite well for the last 15 years about the science behind what's going on with IPCC, and when you have deceit, it doesn't go well with the rest of us. If you have to have something pulled and changed and hockey sticks and all kinds of nonsense that goes on, making a statement about glaciers that are declining when they're not, it just doesn't fit well because the facts don't sustain that. I would just ask that you would make sure that you implore your people who are giving you data on climate change that we look at the science. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, David Fry, and then I called for Greg Harmon.
Yeah.
Oh, you're there, okay. And then we'd also like Dr. Kini Sidell. Is that all right? To come forward. Go ahead,
Thank you, Mr. Steve. Thank you, everyone. It is David Fry. Thank you for pronouncing that correctly. My writing is suspect sometimes. If the goal was the same for those who authored the plan and those who disagree with it, if the goal was the same, then I think there would be confidence that we could figure out a methodology, a better methodology than is there. And there certainly is a better way than the current plan, but the goal of those who authored it and those who disagree with it is not the same. There are three disciplines at work. One is the economics. It would be disastrous. I think that's why it's not documented in the plan. If it's so clear, it's such a slam dunk that the economics would be such a gain, then they would be documented. The second discipline are the politics. There's a strategic agenda plan. Third is science. There's the science. Much of that is not understood. Much of that is not understood. It may take a scientist to understand some of the more technical aspects of climate change, but it doesn't take a scientist to see the tremendous disagreement about what is really happening. There's tremendous disagreement in society about this. There's no clear and absolute, resolute path of what's going on with this climate change. There's agreement that climate is changing. It has always done so. But to make this kind of change with tremendous disagreement to basic questions will not go well. Questions like what was happening before the carbon footprint of man? What is the benchmark of that going on 5,000 years ago, and perhaps more recently? What are case studies that have been poured over to know the advantages and disadvantages of what is going on. So not knowing the cost is not a good business practice. It is not a good business practice at all. So this high-level framework would not work in a business presentation. It wouldn't make it through the first pass. The intro letter to the plan says that there are some 400 mayors, U.S. mayors, who have signed on to it. I want to say this to illustrate that there are over 19,000 municipalities in the United States. 400 have signed on. 18,600 have not. I would encourage CPS and all residents and businesses to ensure you know the goal of the authors and to push it back for at least a minimally acceptable plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. I call for Greg Harmon and ask Dr. Bill Sweet to come forward.
Yeah, thank you very much for this opportunity for holding this hearing. Paula Williams, I appreciate that, and to the board of trustees for being here. I look forward to the day where every monthly meeting is an open meeting where the public has an opportunity to address you as well, and this is not a special case for us. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for the community to have access to the board of the utility that they supposedly own. And I'll just cite a couple of recent examples. We can look back at the South Texas project, units 3 and 4. This was a proposal. We were one of the first utilities to go after new nuclear power in the country, and started off with an $8 billion cost we were anticipating. The community came out strongly opposed to that. We ended up with an $18 billion price tag on that, and it took us over $600 million to buy our way out of that contract. We can look at Spruce. Now we're wrestling with Spruce billion-dollar plan. You know, how we've got a huge stranded cost. Paul was talking about 30 and 40-year costs, you know, embedded in a plant like that. And while we're looking at communities all around the country getting away from that, finding cheaper alternatives that are clean. And so who we are, the people that come to you week after week, we're people that you would consider fiscal conservatives. We're people that want open and transparent democratic governance. And we're people who believe that our care and concern shouldn't end with our homes, with our families, with our neighborhoods, but with our cities, and beyond that with our state and with the world. And that's why we come and we look for harder end goals through this CAP. And had a lot I wanted to share. I've interviewed dozens upon dozens of climate scientists, climatologists, researchers over the years, 15 years as a journalist. And I can tell you, if you're waiting for one Galileo to come along and debunk 99 doctors who just came in and said, you've got a brain tumor and you need aggressive surgery now, if you want to wait, if you want to step back and wait, that's fine. But not for my child, not for my family, not for my neighborhood or my city or this world. I won't stand for that. Thank you.
Next, Dr. Femi Osadeli. Is that sorry? And if I could call forward Suzanne Scott.
Good evening, board members.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good evening, board members. I'm Dr. Femi Osadeli, a consultant in energy and water resources and co-chair of the SA Climate Ready Steering Committee. In April, 11 great San Antonians will decide whether or not to adopt the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, or CAP as we know it. My comments today address 3 things. 1, the role of CPS energy in the CAP process. 2, funding for implementing the CAP. And 3, a call to San Antonio's business community. First, I want to acknowledge CPS Energy for funding the SA Climate Ready program thus far. As the single largest emitter of greenhouse gases in San Antonio, CPS Energy is taking the bull by the horns and showing great exemplary leadership among city-owned utilities. Second, regarding funding, last month, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg announced the award of $2.5 million in technical assistance for the CAP implementation. This could not have come at a better time. More importantly, in his award speech, Mayor Bloomberg said, and I quote, "It's not the federal government that is leading the charge on climate change. It's companies and then local governments. That last phrase places companies or businesses ahead of the municipal governments. Thus, my third comment begins with a shout out to the West San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. In the coming weeks, the Chamber will be hosting a series of business roundtables aimed at filling the critical gap in the current draft CAP, namely the economic challenges of its implementation. I call on other chambers of commerce and business associations in San Antonio to follow this bold and worthy example. In closing, the City Council's decision on the cap will turn on two criteria: equity and economics. For while the social justice community is critical to the equity of climate change, the business community is equally critical to the economics of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. We'll call for Dr. Bill Sweet.
Mr. Chairman, can we ask that y'all speak directly into the mic? I struggle, listening to him, depending on tone if we could just.
I will try. Is that a little better?
Just kidding, no, it's better. I want to make sure I don't miss anything.
And I need to call for Dr. Meredith McGuire.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's me again. I'm still Dr. Bill Sweet, and I'm still a retired scientist, although I'm a little better informed on climate change after having read several new papers and reports since I last was here. Those papers and reports didn't add significantly to what was said to President Lyndon Johnson in 1964, nor to Michael Mann's testimony to Congress in 1989. These reports only increased the confidence in the conclusions. October's IPCC report and November's fourth National Climate Assessment were both considered trusted enough to be used and cited by the city's draft Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, which developed partially with your money, and thank you. Tonight I'm only going to comment on the cap indirectly, and I'm going to go off script based on other, which will probably be a mistake, but anyway, those reports, including since 1964, have said that there's a wall. The physics is clear that there's a wall, and we're rushing towards it. The Flexible Path Plan says we can't do much, or we're going to wait and see. We're rushing towards the wall, and if things don't develop fast enough, we're going to run into the wall. And the cost of that is going to be infinite. The Flexible Path Plan is wholly insufficient to meet the urgency and the intensity of effort in carbon reduction as given, for instance, in the IPCC report, but others. The IPCC report is easily accessible on the internet. Read it. Make enough time to read it carefully. It's tough reading. The fact that you're sitting there clearly indicates that you're intelligent enough. And you're well positioned to get help if you need it. But understanding means integrating its message into your professional life and decisions, and only then will you be able to discharge your responsibilities.
Thank you, Dr. Sweet. I'll call to the right Suzanne Scott and call forward Anna Sandoval. Do you feel like you've already spoken? Okay. You're welcome to 2 more minutes. No. And I'll call forward Wendell Fuqua. Go ahead, Ms. Scott.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne Scott. I'm General Manager of the San Antonio River Authority. Thank you so much to the CPS Energy Board for providing the financial support to develop the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, known as SA Climate Ready, and for hosting this forum tonight. Signs of climate change are already evident. We are experiencing hotter summers, more serious and frequent floods, and longer periods of drought. As a city, we can either wait to see if these predictions of climate change really materialize, or we can begin to accept the data and trends we are experiencing today as the best available information and set a course to protect the livability and economic vitality of our city by taking action toward creating a more resilient city. The Climate Action Plan lists of mitigation and adaptation strategies include many actions that are already underway, including many led by CPS Energy, including the diversification of energy sources with the use of more renewable sources. Also, water and energy conservation have made huge strides in our community. Efforts are underway through SA Tomorrow and other plans to increase the use of transit, promote more walkability, and create more residential density. Sarah is also working to advance practices to reduce impervious cover and improve water quality and reduce threats to flooding. I think if we all can work together on some of these issues that have already started, we can go a long way in making sure that we can reach the goals and objectives of the Climate Action Plan. We need to work together as a community and target the strategies that we can agree on, that we can effectively and economically accomplish, and put our energies behind those. Charting the course toward a more resilient community requires a shared vision of a city that we all want to live and raise our families. It takes persistence to follow through on those strategies that have already started. I just want you to know that the San Antonio River Authority stands ready to help this community in addressing these climate concerns, and we want to partner with y'all as we go forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. White. Let's call for Dr. Meredith McGuire, and then to the mic, and then call for Sarah Thompson.
Hi, my name is Meredith McGuire. I had the privilege of serving on one of the technical working groups in the development of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. Having listened to a few of these talks already, I'm very tempted to go far beyond what I was originally going to say. I probably need at least 15 minutes to do that. So I will just say this. You should not underestimate how urgent the issue is. It is absolutely imperative that all of us immediately start trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Keep in mind that the emissions are staying in the atmosphere for a long time. That means that if we, for example, used more energy and created more emissions last year, those emissions are going to be lasting, and on top of further emissions, the heat increase, the climate chaos that could result is disastrous. I am talking about perhaps even sufficiently disastrous that there is no life left on Earth. Now, hopefully we don't get to that tipping point, but there is already strong evidence that climate change is going to cause San Antonio serious economic detriment, to the point that, for example, the extreme heat and the more frequent heat waves, for example, causing losses in our tourism industry and threatening both our civil and military aviation because planes literally can't take off in such high heat. We could end up with a situation in which the rainfall is reduced dramatically. There is a prediction made in a story that's in the Los Angeles Times recently. They reference a source that figures out what will be the climate likely here down the road, and they're predicting that San Antonio is going to end up with in 2080 by a climate comparable to that of Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. You do not want us to have to live in that climate. It is essential to start reducing the greenhouse gases now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. So I'll call for Wendell Fuquay, and to the mic, and call for Lucas Lane.
My name is Wendell Fuquay. I'm with the Sierra Club. Thanks for having this public session. I urge you to incorporate public input into your regular meetings. Now, please imagine, if you will, that scientists have told us an asteroid will hit the Earth in 2030, that it will wreck our economy, destroy our coastal cities, ravage humanity with drought, floods, and disease. What price would you place on diverting that asteroid? The asteroid of climate change has been identified by scientists, and they now say we have about 12 years to make a serious effort to divert it. Otherwise, it's going to hit us, and our children and grandchildren will suffer terribly. The figures in the recent report from the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change tell us this. To have a prayer of saving ourselves, we need to cut CO2 emissions 45% by 2030. If you look at the figures in the draft cap, 48% of our emissions come from our coal and gas-fired power plants. Without doing anything else, and I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't, San Antonio would be on track to meeting that 45% goal. Some argue that closing the plants would be too expensive. I ask, what is the expense of doing nothing? Our own government's fourth National Climate Assessment states that the U.S. has experienced $44 billion weather disasters in the last 4 years, a total cost of nearly $400 billion. It's an understatement. In an understatement, the report says acting sooner rather than later generally results in lower costs overall for both adaptation and mitigation efforts. The state of California has committed to generating 60% of its energy from renewable sources by 2030 and 100% by 2045. CPS is committed to the cap, but still plans to burn gas and coal beyond 2040. Surely, in Texas and San Antonio, bastions of free enterprise and innovation, we can match California in vision and ambition. We need to include in the cap a plan to close our coal and gas plants by 2030. The asteroid of climate change is on its way. You board members set policy. You can make such a plan happen. I urge you to do so.
Thank you, sir. I call on Mike Sarah Thompson and call forward Jason Pittman.
My name is Sarah Catherine Thompson. I'm a senior geology and environmental science major. And climate change, as Meredith McGuire said, is happening faster than expected. We keep getting all these reports saying how urgent this issue is, how our window is only 12 years and how that window is closing. And I want to express my support for the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. It is not too expensive. The current cost of doing business as usual is unthinkably high, and those costs are such as increasing loss of human life, increasing health issues, increased property damage, decreased quality of life. CPS energy is the foremost cause of greenhouse gas emissions in San Antonio, and while the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan only accounts for emissions that occur within the city's boundaries, CPS's use of fossil fuels decreases our air quality and contributes to climate change. And for those of you who don't think the climate's changing or you don't think it matters, those of you who aren't studying what I'm studying and don't see the facts, how can you look at a city like Houston or San Antonio and see that brown haze on the horizon and think, that's safe for me to breathe. I want my children breathing that. I want my children breathing more of that. How can you have a car drive by you and smell the carbon monoxide and think, that's healthy for me to be breathing? Even if you don't believe all the things that people before me have been saying, we need to find different fuel sources. We're going to run out. It's going to become expensive. Renewable energy is the only way forward. And as technology advances, it's going to become more readily available. And as technology advances, the availability of fossil fuels is going to decrease. So why not work now on implementing fossil fuels waiting until the last minute, waiting until so many people have left San Antonio because it's just getting hotter and more miserable to live here. And I don't want to live in a city that puts profit before reason. And if you put profit before sustainability, all I can say is that you can't breathe and you can't eat money. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Call for Mike Lucas Lang and call forward Sean Gardner.
Good evening. My name is My name is Lucas Lang. I'm a practicing mechanical engineer.
Mr. Lang, just as Ms. Gonzalez said, you might, since you're tall, you might try to pull that up. Yeah,
Should we do that way? But I'm here to speak on my own behalf. And today I'd like to actually speak to personal finance. The average commute in San Antonio is 24.6 miles per day. Excuse me, that's miles driven per day. And that's according to SA 2020.org. Now, if you attribute the IRS estimate of 59 cents per mile to that, it comes out to be $5,297 per year. I engineered my lifestyle to live close to work, and it costs on the same math about $861 per year. So the difference between the average citizen of San Antonio and my cost is about $4,400. And over the course of 35 years, 30, age 65, when I'll stop working maybe, that would be about $155,000 worth of wealth spent on commuting. Now, just let that sink in. The difference between, and the only difference is how close I live to work. So, what I'm proposing, and really this is as specific to the plan, is around transportation, is that our government should supply incentive to citizens to live close to where they work. It's both an economic solution. Each person would essentially be getting a $4,000 raise if they live closer to work. It's an environmental solution. You would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by about 84% if everybody lived as close to work as I do. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll call to the mic Jason Pittman and call forward Patrick Admar. Is Jason Pittman here? So then I'll call to the mic Sean Garner. And where's Patrick Atwater? You're already up here. And ask Judy Hummel to come forward.
My name is Sean Garner, and I'm a citizen of San Antonio. 12 years ago, because of the ruthless greed of the most powerful financial institutions in this country, the economic crisis ruined the lives of tens of millions of average people all over the world. So many powerful, wealthy individuals and institutions are incapable of putting the long-term common good before their own personal gain. Climate change is the central issue of our time. If we don't act now, its effects will be unlike anything we've ever seen. City public service must support the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. CPS is a public utility that must put the long-term well-being of San Antonio, especially the most vulnerable and powerless among us, before the very interests who profit from the continued destruction of our plan. Compared to other plans adapted by other cities and states and countries, this cap is a mild plan. Those who will attack the cap before you tonight because of the short-term costs cannot fathom the long-term costs of inaction, both in money and, more importantly, human suffering. We must not give credence to those who refuse to believe in reality. It is not only environmentalists who live in our environment. Humanity has accomplished much throughout our history, and we can accomplish living in harmony with our planet, but only if we put the common good and our common future first.
Thank you, Mr. Governor. We'll call to the mic Patrick Atwater and call forward Alan Montemito.
I think I have an extra minute. Zach Harris.
I have you down for 2 minutes, but you think you've got an extra minute?
Yeah.
Okay, let's give you 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Atwater, and I'm the founder and CEO of 180 Solar. We're a development firm here in San Antonio that works on commercial and industrial scale solar power plants. I started the company 5 years ago. I was living in St. Louis, Missouri at the time, and we were looking for the best place to start the company. We looked at New York, we looked at Georgia, we looked at California, Colorado, all over the country, and ultimately decided that Texas would be the best place for us to headquarter for future success. We narrowed that down to San Antonio. We'd never visited the city before, and one weekend we came down and picked our place to live down in Southtown and moved down here to start the company. So, and the reason for that, what differentiated San Antonio from all the other cities was CPS Energy. I had been in the industry for 5 years before that and saw how difficult it was to work with a lot of the investor-owned utilities. So for the chance to work with a community-owned utility That was very valuable to us. And I'd like, and I'd say it's been a great decision. We've been here for 5 years, been very successful. Our clients include the museum, the Pearl, Botanical Gardens, Confluence Park. So I start by saying thank you for creating those market conditions that brought us here to San Antonio in the first place. And I think that from my standpoint, we're ready to grow. We're ready to do our job. We're ready to make more solar power here in the city. And we think that one of the best ways to do that is to create market conditions that allow companies like ours to innovate and be successful. The STEP program has been wonderful. It's what brought us here, but solar has already been more successful than anyone expected it to be. So we're running out of funds, which makes market conditions uncertain and hard for us to continue to hire and grow and do our job, and for people to invest. And I'd like to say too that focusing on commercial projects, most of our clients are not the kind of people that you would think are doing this for the good of mankind. They're doing this because it's a good financial decision. And by leveraging the capital of the community, I think we can move much faster than putting it all on the shoulders of CPS. And if CPS helps create those market conditions, everyone in this community wants to pitch in and invest and take advantage of making their own power from the sun for free. So we're working in other markets outside of San Antonio, growing much faster, just because those market conditions are more favorable. And so I think there's things that CPS can do to help encourage those market conditions, encouraging people to make those investments and growing this marketplace much faster than if CPS were to do it on their own. And we're ready to hire, we're ready to grow this green energy economy, and we want to be a good partner with CPS, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. So call tonight, Judy Hummel, and call forward Peter Bella.
Good evening. My name is Judy Hummel. I'm a private citizen, a concerned environmentalist probably is where I am. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to give our ideas. My comments address those who are concerned the proposed actions are 1, too radical or unattainable, 2, are bad for business, and 3, are too expensive. As for the proposed actions, setting goals is a necessary part of planning. Without goals, how do you make any plan of action or know which way to go? Not striving toward reducing greenhouse gases will be far worse than not achieving the goals completely. Will it be bad for business? Most other cities are having similar conversations about how to adjust for and combat climate change. Moving your business to another location would only provide a temporary solution at best. But no matter where you live, the predicted climate changes will be bad for businesses, as well as everybody else and our future generations. Will it be expensive? Yes. Controlling greenhouse gases will be expensive, but the costs of continuing climate change will be more expensive. Sometimes it's necessary to make sacrifices to provide for the common good. Many individuals have purchased solar panels, curtailed driving, lowered heat or raised cooling temperatures, and made personal sacrifices. We can't afford not to take action. Everyone will suffer economically with continuing climate change. Doing almost anything is better than doing nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
And for CPS, I don't know if you know about what Bandera Co-op does. Bandera Electric Co-op, they have what I call time of day pricing. You might want to look into it.
Thank you, Ms. Hummel. I'll call the line Ellen Montemajor and call for John Huffman.
My name is Alan Montemajor. I'm a San Antonio native, retired mechanical engineer. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. We've heard a lot about tipping points and all this stuff, but that seems so far away. I mean, the glaciers are not here, they're somewhere else, and we don't live at the coast, so we're not so much concerned about rising sea levels. We don't live on an island, etc. But there's a tipping point for San Antonio. Did you know that? It's the heat island effect. Imagine a 102-degree August day here in San Antonio. We're having more and more of them, right? Okay, what do? You turn down the air conditioner. You're comfortable. But that air conditioner exhausts the heat from your home outside. And that heat makes it hotter all around the city. But what do? Remember that air conditioner, CPS Energy has to generate the power, right? But to generate the power, they generate the heat also. So San Antonio is already 5 to 6 degrees hotter than the surrounding area. Imagine 30 days over 100 in a row. Imagine 40 or even 100 days of over 100. Imagine what that would be like in San Antonio. I don't want to live in a place like that. I'm retired. I can escape the heat of the city in August instead, July, August, right? But a lot of people can't. So you guys are in a position to really do something about this. I ask you to support the CAP plan. I ask that you work with our businesses to make things better. Ask people to adopt electric vehicles in their fleets. Change the CPS Energy fleet as much as possible to electric vehicles. Establish good charging infrastructure around the city. Support the EV Ready and Solar Ready initiatives that are going in San Antonio. In short, we all breathe the same air. We all sweat here in June, July, and August. So please, use your position to do what we need for San Antonio and bear the costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. So I'll call on Mike Peter Bella and call forward Stan Mitchell.
Good evening. My name is Peter Bella. Thank you again for making time this evening. I also am somebody who's very much in support of the city's project, the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. It's been my pleasure to be on the steering committee since the plan's inception. I would also add my voice to those calling for a sense of urgency. One metric that I would like to see assured as we move forward with the plan comes from what is called the Paris compliant trajectories. That is, back in, I think it was September, Navigant, the consultant who's responsible for a lot of the technical analysis for the plan, showed the steering committee and the other technical working groups what are called the Paris compliant trajectories. Bottom line, it shows that with the continuing pollution, the carbon emissions, the amount of carbon in the atmosphere continues to mount and rise. And that if we want to hew to the goals of the carbon plan as the mayor has set forth, with a 1.5 degrees Celsius limit, we've got to follow trajectories. We've got to follow paths for making reductions very quickly. And in fact, the plans show that what is required for San Antonio is a precipitous drop. I question strongly whether the plan in its current projections meets those requirements. I would ask the city and ask Navigant to make sure that they perform an analysis that shows how closely the plan hews to that carbon reduction requirement. This is a technical requirement to meet the 1.5 degrees Celsius goal of the plan. And I would hope that the Flex plan will also be required to meet that goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.